All right.
And then my teacher changed around how we were gonna do our class today.
Oh,
I wanted to get it. I wanted to get the food today.
Arch actually got it, so.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's festive. I don't know if you sent around the Zoom link.
Yeah, I sent that up.
Okay. Nobody's on the Zoom yet. But the whole intention is it records it so that we can always have this later.
That's cool. I need to start getting people who do the online stuff to like check in with me so I can give them credit for
Yeah.
actually. There's no view marker.
What are you looking for in marker? I have markers. I have dry erase.
Dry erase. A nice marker. Is this new?
I don't know. It's one of the ones that we get in science, so. All right, well, no reason for me to get started either. Happy holidays. Good news is I can go back and edit this whenever I get around to it. Take off the beginning. We get started about 10 minutes late.
Yeah, I know Arch and Fatty are on their way. Allison can't make it. She had a definite thing. I'm gonna do a couple announcements before we start too.
Okay.
So, guys, I got turkey sandwiches from Wawa, so if anybody's hungry. please eat them.
Yeah, they're the same.
They're all the same, yeah.
Can we split it?
Oh,
It should be cut in half, right?
okay.
I don't know if I could just take it, that's all.
Oh, yeah, no. Are you sure? Yeah. Thank you.
I will grab, if there's one left at the end, I will grab one. Not hungry now. Not hungry now. Gotta give a talk.
that in a stomach.
Don't want to get postprandial somnolence.
What?
I'll talk, it's in the talk. The true reason why you get tired.
Did I tell you how bad I screwed up in my lab the other day?
What'd you do?
I forgot to incubate my brain tissue with antibodies.
Whoops.
So, and I set the timer for 2 hours. And because I didn't move them to the antibodies, I
Yeah.
thought the antibody was the wash solution.
Oops.
So I dumped $4,000 worth of antibodies down the drain.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, that's bad.
I'm really lucky the doctor I'm working for is super nice. He's like, it's a learning experience. It's an expensive learning experience, but it's a learning experience.
Label everything. When I was doing staining, I would write on pieces of paper what stuff was and slip it underneath the various dishes, so I knew what was what. Give it another 5 minutes and then I'll kick the tires.
Okay.
You need to do announcements though first.
End up starting before other people get here. And maybe I'll do them at the end.
Okay.
Rather do it together.
We talk about the turkey first, so I wanted to make sure everybody was here for the turkey first. But we'll see.
So my mom was in like a bad mood this morning. And I was like trying to like make friendly conversation with her. I was like, yeah, so we're doing a meeting on the neuroscience behind Thanksgiving, like what turkey does to you and stuff. She's like, yeah, it makes you sleepy. Who cares?
It does more than that. It does more than that. It's anti-inflammatory.
Is it really?
Well, some parts of the Thanksgiving dinner are, so. It's about what I expected it to turn out would be right before Thanksgiving break, because a lot of people are like wanting to. There's so many classes that I didn't realize the professors were canceling class tomorrow.
Are they really?
Yeah, there's a lot of classes being
I mean,
canceled.
my lab's canceled.
Yeah. Pretty much everything I have is canceled.
Making my kids come to class tomorrow.
I worked at a gym, so this morning I was working out with one of my coworkers, and we did like a Thanksgiving circuit. So we like based everything off of Thanksgiving foods and did it a couple times. And
That's cool.
we're standing there doing mountain climbers, like, for the turkey. But now, like, I think about Thanksgiving food and I think about working out and I'm less appetized.
So on Monday, Chris Knapp does his unfinished research presentation.
Oh. What's it on?
Yeah. I was just like, Chris Knapp, I know that.
Yeah, he used to work in my lab.
He used to be president of NeuroClub. Work in progress, title to be determined.
So it's a double work in progress. I've been officially doing this talk for 9 minutes and haven't said a word. So we waiting for the other couple of people to show up or
Yeah, I just got an email from somebody too. She's on the way.
try to get her butt over?
But it's all the way across campus.
Yeah, I came from Robinson, so
James.
Jimmy James. Chunk. Last night, so
Ours is 1 minute out.
wow, that's some fine time skills. This was Black Friday 3 years ago. What do we have? Do we have anybody? Just one participant, me. Whoa. You didn't see that.
Would be a surprise.
No, it won't. Within March. This is a nice room. Wish we had rooms like this in Robinson.
Oh God, Robinson is such a dump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, did you notice that the fire doors are made of wood?
Very, very thick wood coated with God knows how many coats of fire retardant stuff. But yeah, they're wood. They're supposed to be aimed at slowing down the fire, not stopping it. Oh,
Yeah, timing. You're great.
yeah. So, yeah, so those doors have been closed for the last couple of days because they figure out the fire system. Good to know that the fire working in Robinson the last few days. It actually was probably not working before then too, but we didn't know about it. Okay. So what we might do, what I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to upload this onto YouTube.
Okay.
So you can share it. And it can stick around. So
That
if
works.
anybody wants to see it. The people who are in NeuroClub who are not here. Yeah, great. Somebody left their mouth guard.
Delicious.
A couple more minutes.
Yeah, like 3 more minutes.
Okey doke. Okey dokey. It's good Christmas music. There's not a whole lot of good Thanksgiving music.
Excuse me.
Turkey Chase by Bob Dylan.
I put on music, but I'd have to delete it because if I put on music and then put it on YouTube, they'll block it.
Yeah.
Unless it's, what is it, public domain music. Gotta find music that's 70 years old or older.
I had to do a project on I was doing neuroscience and music for my sensory perception class. And so I was doing examples of listening for stuff, and I got flagged for using, like, there were like 5-second clips of things, and they were like, nope, flagged. I was like, come on, it's for
Yeah.
school.
They're serious.
All right, let's start with the announcements. So, I know you guys already know this stuff. I guess I'm talking to you. Hi. So. We got it. Oh. Yay. So we've got a couple things, that are going on. One is that, the club in general needs to accrue some service hours. So we've got a couple opportunities for that. You had, what was the one that you?
Unified Olympic Sports.
So, and you said that they do, you would like help with like coaching and like organization stuff for kids? Or just-
For special needs college students and high school students.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, so you can help out with that. That's an opportunity. Tutoring for your department counts as service hours, so I'm told. And I found another opportunity earlier today. There's going to be a blood drive here on December 2nd. And they're looking for volunteers to help with organizing the event and stuff like that. So some options for you. And the second thing, and Mishi's not here, I was going to have her talk about it, but we're going to be holding a t-shirt design contest. What did she say she was using?
It was a t-shirt.
Yeah, it was like, it wasn't Cafe Press, because that's
No,
the one that. I think I wrote it down somewhere. I just don't remember.
Yeah. Do you know what day we had that meeting for the officers? It was Wednesday.
It was Wednesday.
It was.
Well, he's looking that up. The other announcement is we're gonna have another meeting on December 3rd. It's gonna be a Friday. We're just gonna chill and watch a movie. We're gonna watch Inside Out. So you're welcome to join us for that. That's all I got until he figures that out.
That's early. I think it was.
Oh, yeah, I think it was custom.
Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, so if you go in there and design a t-shirt, you're welcome to join the contest. You got some ideas. So yeah, so we'll get a couple submissions. Hopefully, and then we'll have a club t-shirt.
All right, well, I'm gonna get going. We're gonna talk about the neuroscience of Thanksgiving. And so generally what we're gonna do is we're gonna first talk about the most important part of the whole thing, which is the food. talking about what the food has in it that actually stimulates the nervous system. We'll then talk about stresses of family. Because yeah, we can talk about the food, but I think the other thing that everybody has to deal with is dealing with family members. And end it with some tips on how to make it a more enjoyable, relaxing holiday break. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about your brain requires neurotransmitters to function. So it has a large group of neurotransmitters that let neurons talk to each other, but only a couple of them are really important for mood and that are key for this holiday. So the biggest ones that are involved in the Thanksgiving holiday are serotonin, dopamine, as well as acetylcholine. Serotonin is tryptophan modified. So tryptophan is an essential amino acid that your brain will convert into serotonin. There are several building blocks of dopamine, which you should probably know is the happy neurotransmitter. Those are phenylalanine, another amino acid, and also tyrosine. Both of those are building blocks that go into creating dopamine. And the last one that's important for Thanksgiving is acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter used to move your muscles, but also it's involved in memory processes as well as controlling neural circuits. So there are a lot of good things in the Thanksgiving meal. And when you eat it, you're getting the building blocks of a lot of neurotransmitters. This is the one that always gets all the press. Of course, turkey. We all know, we've heard that tryptophan is the major active component of turkey. And there's been people that have been out there stating that the problem with turkey, why you feel sleepy after eating turkey, is because tryptophan and tyrosine are both the building blocks of major neurotransmitters. And in particular, tryptophan is the one that's the precursor for serotonin. And we know from our psych courses that high serotonin makes you feel content, stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, makes you feel relaxed. So people have always thought, well, turkey makes you sleepy. Turkey itself is not making you sleepy. Sadly, the amount of tryptophan that is in the turkey is inconsequential compared to the amount your brain needs to make neurotransmitters. It really, most of that goes through you. It does not stick with you. Eating a whole bucket full of turkey is not going to make it go up that much. But it does make you tired. After eating Thanksgiving, you probably don't want to do anything. Well, this is why postprandial somnolence, that big word basically means sleepiness after a big meal. So most of the time, the reason why you're tired after a Thanksgiving meal is not because of the tryptophan in the turkey. It's because you've eaten a whole lot of food and your stomach wants to digest it. So what you get is a switch from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, and that's the relaxing part. So you eat a lot, it's going to make you sleepy. That's why large carnivores like tigers and lions, you never see them move much in the zoo. If you've ever gone to the zoo and you looked at a cheetah, cheetah's laying there sleeping. It's not really doing a lot. Large carnivores, when you eat a big meal, you get tired. You fall asleep. And that's the reason why we get tired after Thanksgiving dinner. It's not because of the tryptophan in the turkey. It's because you've probably eaten a lot and you might have drank a lot. So let's go away from the turkey and talk about cranberries. Cranberries can be a very, very healthy food if you get them as berries and then you make something out of it. So if you are one of those people that like cranberries from scratch, where you actually cook the cranberries and you mix them with stuff and you make cranberry jam or compote or whatever, that's good for you. If you get it in the can, I love cranberry sauce, the ones that you open the can and comes out as a perfect looking in the inside of the can. I like that, but that's got a ton of sugar in it to make it taste less bitter. It's not as healthy for you. That said, there's a lot of good things that are in cranberries. The first one are phenols. Phenols are very powerful antioxidants. So they help your brain work better, and it prevents cellular damage in your brain. So eating meals that have lots of color with them contain antioxidants, anti-inflammatory. Anthocyanins are considered to be anti-cancer. And you probably have heard this from other things, but cranberries are really good for preventing bladder and urinary problems. So a lot of supplements that people get, if they're prone to things like UTIs, urinary tract infections, are some derivative of cranberries. They are good. And the only problem that you have to worry about with cranberries is they have a very high level of vitamin K, which for most people, that's not a big deal. But if you know someone who's on blood thinners because of a stroke, because of a heart attack, they do have vitamin K. So a heavy dose of cranberries can make people clot more than they're supposed to. So eating a lot of this, especially fresh cranberries, may not be good for their blood thinner levels. It'll make them less thin, more prone to get clots. But you really have to eat them quite a bit for several days. So there's a lot of good in these. There's also a lot of good in green beans. Now, of course, they are low calorie if you eat them like this. If you eat them like that, not so much. That on the right is your typical green bean casserole that my family really likes. It's got not only deep fried onions on the top, but normally it's got cream of mushroom or cream of something chicken mixed in there. None of that's good for you. There's a lot of sugar in there, a lot of salt, not good. But if you just saute up some green beans and maybe throw a little spice on it, that's actually pretty healthy. It has folate. Folate's good for you. A lot of fiber. So it'll help clean you out from all the turkey you've been eating. And it's got some vitamin K. And if you eat it without a lot of flair on it, it's actually pretty low calorie. If you go and buy a can of green beans, and you eat a can of green beans, it's got something like 20 calories on it. It's a lot of nutrition for not a lot of calories. Good stuff. Now, let's talk a little bit about the neurotransmitters of the food. Here's something you probably didn't know. And this is, remember that tyrosine I was mentioning that's in turkey? Tyrosine is actually, or L-DOPA, for those of you who know anything about Parkinson's, they don't make their own dopamine, so they have to take L-DOPA. Every neuron in your brain can make a set of neurotransmitters. So dopamine neurons have a certain amount of enzymes to convert tyrosine or L-DOPA into whatever it wants. So the interesting thing about dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine is they're all basically the same molecule, just slightly modified. Now, if you remember your physio or your neuro course, you probably learned that dopamine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine have radically different functions. If your neurons are dopamine neurons, they have an enzyme to convert tyrosine to dopamine. If the neurons are norepinephrine neurons, they have two enzymes, one to make this and then convert it to this. And if you have epinephrine neurons, which is a fancy term, does anybody know what epinephrine used to be called? Adrenaline? Yep, adrenaline. It actually, those neurons have three different enzymes that convert it from point to that, to that, to that. This is the reason why if you have a problem with your dopamine neurons, you don't have problems in other systems. Because if you have Parkinson's, which is a loss of dopamine neurons, the other neurons can still make these other things, even though it's in a cascade, because your norepinephrine neurons are making this from tyrosine themselves. So the cool thing is that all of these are related. And so if you have a damage to one system, it doesn't affect the others. Every neuron that's one of these three types of neurons can make anything they want. And that makes it really cool that you have a lot of different neurons that can be made from the building blocks of what you eat in Thanksgiving. So whether you have turkey or say you eat tofurkey, say you're vegan, you don't eat turkey. If you eat soybean products, any sort of tofu, it's got all the aminos in it to make all these. So the cool thing about soy is one of the only plants that contain all the all the amino acids you need to live. So you can live on a protein diet that consists completely on soy and you're happy. Now, if you eat a lot of corn products, corn only contains a subset. And so people that eat corn usually have to put beans in it. So if you know that, like if you get Taco Bell or some Mexican food, it's got corn tortillas with beans in it. Soy has all 20 amino acids. Corn doesn't, and neither do beans. But if you put those two together, those two collectively get 20. So you can either eat soy protein or you can eat corn and beans collectively, and they will give you everything you need for a vegan lifestyle. So you don't have to have meat to do this. So as long as you have food containing tyrosine, you can make all the neurotransmitters you need. So you need tryptophan for the serotonin and tyrosine for all these guys, and you get them in spades Thanksgiving meal. That's no problem. So any questions about the food? Stuffing is basically just carbs. So I didn't talk about that because carb is energy and stuffing is really not. Pumpkin pie doesn't have a whole lot of anything in it but sugar. It's good stuff. My Thanksgiving, we ate this thing that nobody's ever heard of out here. It's called mincemeat. Nobody's ever heard of it. In the East Coast. You've heard of it, mincemeat? Basically what it is, it's called mincemeat, but it doesn't have meat in it. It's actually a combination of cinnamon and nutmeg and spices all mixed up. So it doesn't really have meat in it, but it's called that. And so it's kind of like a very cinnamony apple pie. But we have a lot of pumpkin around here. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Thanksgiving, and the stress is because it's more than food, it's family. And for a lot of us, we have part of our family that we may not get along with. And getting along with family is something that is difficult, especially with the pandemic, because we're all stressed out. We're all concerned about our own well-being and those of others. And of course, that's also not including all the political stuff that's out there, as well as other issues that might come up. So it's a stressful time, and it really doesn't have to be. This is a cartoon that I thought was pretty funny. It's like, for once, we're going to have a happy family get together. I'm stuffing the turkey with Prozac. So it is a stressful time. And stress is one of those things that if it gets out of control can cause a lot of problems. And so that's what we're going to be spending the rest of the time talking about. And that is going to be about the stressful effects of Thanksgiving. Family, politics, sports, or lifestyle problems. These are all things that we have to struggle with, or shopping. Nowadays, it's not as big a problem because we have everybody shops online. But I remember many years where I had to get up at 3 a.m. to wait outside of Best Buy for a TV. When you were little, you might have gotten dragged out to one of those trips where you had to go with somebody. And it used to be like a rite of passage that people would go out and literally camp out in front of Best Buy until they got whatever TV. So they saved $100 on a TV, but they were out in the cold for 8 hours. So there's a lot of reasons why this holiday is stressful. Christmas is stressful too, but I think that Thanksgiving can be more stressful because it's brief. You get a little bit more time with Christmas and the New Year's holiday, so you can stretch it out. So if you disappear for a day over the Christmas break, nobody's going to miss you. If you disappear for this weekend, somebody's going to know you're gone. And so stress is a big problem.
There's I think I heard somewhere, probably like WHYY or something, where Thanksgiving was the day that hospitalizations were the highest because of all the fighting and stuff that people did.
Yeah, it's the first major holiday where you actually have to take a very sharp knife against, a bird. And so there's actually a lot of lacerations. And also, I'm not even talking about the people who deep fry their turkey.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
Frozen
so
in the-
deep frying a turkey is normally not that bad, except the people that deep fry the frozen turkeys.
Mhm.
Because frozen turkeys in boiling oil explode. And then that exploding oil hits the burner and causes its own flame, and then the backyard is burning. So there's a lot of problems, but politics is a big one. So are sports. We have a couple of major metropolitan football teams that are within close distance of us. So we got the Eagles, we got the Giants, we got whatever the Washington team is now. And so you get people together from different parts of the country, and they may not always get along, especially the Eagles and the Giants people. Those people, for some reason, don't get along around here. Very few people are Jets fans around here. I think it's just because the Jets have been terrible
There's a
forever.
ton of Dallas fans around here. Too.
Yeah, and I think that's a knee-jerk reaction to the Giants. So more than anything else, I can't imagine any other reason why there would be a lot of Giants fans here. I mean, Dallas fans, except for they're Giants fans. So they do it to rib the Giants fans. So there are a lot of negative things that stress can cause on your brain. The good news is your brain is designed to deal with short stresses, quick ones. You get scared, you forgot something, like something is due tonight, like homework. Oh, I gotta get this done. I gotta get this done. You get stressed, you get panicked, you do it, you get it done. Whoo, done. Your brain is built to deal with short stresses. There was a really kind of cool book that came out about 15 years ago called Why Zebras Don't Have Ulcers, which was an interesting one because animals don't get ulcers. We do. We get ulcers. And that's because what does a zebra have to worry about when it's running around? Basically, one kind of predator, say a lion, for instance. Well, if a lion goes after a zebra, two things will happen. The lion will get the zebra, or the zebra will get away. If the lion gets the zebra, is the zebra stressed? It's dead. If the zebra gets away, is it stressed? No, it got away. So our brain is built to deal with short stresses. The problem is our brain is not built for chronic stresses. You don't find a zebra going, it's 10 o'clock, I got to go over there and go in that field with that lion. They don't have to do that, but you have to go to jobs you may not like, meet family you may not like, or if you're going home for Thanksgiving, maybe you're going to bump into somebody who you knew that you don't like. And those are things that we can't control as well, because if you don't like a job, but it's your sole source of income, it's not like you can say like, yeah, I don't need money. You need the funds, you need the degree. So even though you may not like a professor that is teaching your course, you're still going to class every day. And that's going to cause repetitive stress. And that repetitive stress is going to increase inflammatory chemicals in your brain and body. You're going to feel physically worn out after a stressful event. If you go meet your family, you deal with them, you go back to wherever you live and you feel visibly like you just ran a marathon. It's just all these inflammatory chemicals are just making you feel terrible. You also tend to get a lot more heart racing, palpitations, sweating whenever you're stressed. And that sympathetic nervous system activity is not good for you long term. Other things that increase are cortisol, that's your stress hormone, and epinephrine, which is adrenaline. Again, if you're a fit individual, high levels of epinephrine is not bad, but if you're out of shape or not expecting it, if you run a marathon, obviously that's going to be a workout. You don't expect to get a workout going to Thanksgiving. And these are going to cause problems if they last longer than a short period of time. And that is going to cause problems with sleep, obviously problems with concentration and memory. You've probably done worse
on exams when you're really tired. Pulling all-nighters might help, but we need sleep in order to consolidate memories. If you are staying up all night, you're not giving your brain time to consolidate everything you learned. So if you have this day after day for Thanksgiving or Christmas, these are going to cause problems. You're going to get sicker, you're going to get more stressed, and holidays tend to have higher rates of heart attacks from the stress of doing it. And you'll be forgetful. Long-term effects can be pretty bad. Now, we've studied this mostly for people that have chronic depression or chronic PTSD, but holidays can be a form of PTSD if you have a bad one or multiple bad ones. And that can cause damage, literal damage to your brain. You can actually get brain damage from chronic stress. You can lose neurons in your prefrontal cortex. Now, this is what makes you you, what makes you willing to do things and makes you make judgments, ethics, all those good stuff. And if you lose neurons up here, that's bad. Same thing for your hippocampus. That's responsible for learning, memory, acquiring new skills, acquiring a new task. And those can get damaged forever from chronic stress. If you take someone that suffered from PTSD, look in their brain, you'll see less neurons than somebody that didn't in the same family. It's pretty scary. Now, of course, this is usually repetitive, but even short stresses, after a final exam week, I usually get sick. I don't know about you guys, but I get sick. And that's because chronic stress can increase inflammatory chemicals to the point where it actually makes your immunity go down. Short stresses make your immunity go up because you might get sick. Chronic stress actually decimate your immune system. You get more colds if you've been stressed for a week. If you have a bad job, you get sick more often. If you have a bad experience with somebody, you'll get more sick. And I almost always get sick after finals week because everybody and their performance in my classes makes me nervous, and grading makes me nervous, especially when I'm assigning grades. And I usually get sick because I burn out of my inflammatory chemicals and make myself more likely to get sick. Question?
I was just learning about this in another class, and it was like, chronic stress will increase the inflammatory chemicals while simultaneously sending out a inhibitory to, I think, your B cells. If I'm not mistaken.
Both the B and the T. So those are cells in your immune system, the ones that actively seek out invaders.
So it like does, but like it makes it less likely to attack, but it's also like like swelling everything.
Yeah, well, if you think about this, it's like anything. Could you do a job if you worked 18 hours a day? Every day? You'd burn out. So the immune system, if it gets ramped up long term, it will burn out just like you would. So that's what's happening here, is that basically your immune system is so hypersensitive. It's making all these cells and these inflammatory substances for so long that it just loses the ability to make it anymore. And you find your immune system crashes, especially after a couple of months. And there's a lot of circuits. So if you took like physiological psychology, you learned about this connection between thinking of stressful things. The cortical limbic system is the one that deals with interpreting situations. That sends a connection to your prefrontal cortex that determines whether or not what's happening to you is something you like. And if it's not, which this is what's considered to be the mind and body connection, because it's the one that's actually making things happen after you decide, I'm miserable. This is going to trigger the hypothalamus, that triggers the pituitary, that triggers the adrenals, to produce all sorts of stuff that make you feel stressed. So the limbic system triggers the prefrontal cortex. That goes through this system, which if you remember physio, it's called the HPA axis, because the hypothalamus sends an emergency signal to the pituitary. The pituitary basically says we need to ramp up all your systems. That connects to your adrenal cortex. That releases cortisol, epinephrine, which is going to increase all of this stuff. So increases your body temperature, it increases your heart rate, your blood pressure, breathing rate, and hopefully it means you'll might flee from whatever it is. So if you've been with you're going to your family and you don't like interacting with them, you might at some point like, I need a timeout. I'm going to go for a walk. And that will hopefully decrease the stress, at least for a little bit. This graph I show a lot in physio because I think it's instructional. That shows you this is the nice, this is the stress side over here, and this is the nice side. Everything in your body, your organs, whether it be your heart, your lungs, your stomach, your liver, kidneys, your digestive system, even your excretory system can be turned on or off, depending upon what system is wired into it. This is the panic. The panic center ramps up all the stuff that involves the flight or fight system. The parasympathetic kind of slows it down. And so when you're panicked or you're stressed, all this stuff is interacting to make both your reaction to stress higher as well as slow down digestion. This is why people, when they get really upset and sick, they throw up, they get nauseous, because your stomach does not like having food in it when you're stressed. And so if you are stressed, this will be triggering your stomach to get rid of it, to throw up. It's also the reason why when you scare animals, sometimes you hear people that when they get scared, they soil themselves. And that's again, because the sympathetic tells all this stuff to contract, because if you're fleeing from something, stuff in your bladder and bowels will slow you down. So all this stuff is the panic reaction. This is the reaction that you want to stimulate. This is the happy side. So the hard part about stressful events is trying to switch from this system to this system. And really, there are some tips on how to do that, which is what I'm going to end with. So this one just shows you the HPA axis. It's a very lousy picture, but it's the hypothalamus stimulating the pituitary, and then that stimulates the adrenals to release the stress hormone cortisol. So this is the system that gets out of whack when you're stressed. And so there are a lot of brain areas involved in stress. You got your HPA axis, you got the parabrachial nerve, which is going to make you breathe heavier when you're panicked. There's a periaqueductal gray, which is involved in escape or avoidance behaviors. So sometimes when you just want to get away from people. And the locus ceruleus is an area of the brain that deals with alertness. Like the more you get annoyed by someone, the more you realize they're being annoying. And that's because of this. And so if something bad happens to you during a holiday, the locus ceruleus' job is to remember it. So it's the one that creates these stress circuits in the brain. And the major neurotransmitters that get released when you're freaked out, cortisol, epinephrine, and norepinephrine. This one is going to stimulate the sympathetic nervous system. This one is going to stimulate your muscles and your brain. This one is going to remember that stress so that if you think about it, it will make you not want to do it. So if you had a bad experience last Thanksgiving, this is the neurotransmitter that's going to bring that up, to remind you that a bad thing happened. So not good. So how do we decrease this? Do any of you know about supplements for anxiety? Any of you know?
I've heard of like anti-anxiety medicine.
Yes, those, but have you heard of any like stuff you can go to Acme to buy that supposedly will help you reduce anxiety or depression?
I've heard magnesium.
Magnesium. Any others? Any of these?
Oh, omega-3s.
St. John's wort, folic acid, omega-3 fatty acids, SAMe. These are all things you can buy in a grocery store that have some link to helping people. St. John's wort is something that does have some efficacy in depression. SAMe has been shown to have depression. Omega-3 fatty acids and folic acid also have been shown to help people with mood disorders. Now, they have a lot of side effects, and they have a lot of interactions with regular drugs like anti-anxieties and antidepressants. So they are a risk, but there are some that you could take as part of your Thanksgiving planning that might make it easier.
Serotonin syndrome, is that the same as serotonin poisoning?
Serotonin syndrome is a very rare reaction where somebody's brain and body go hyperactive when they get a little bit of serotonin in them. It usually happens when they take a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And serotonin syndrome is a quick, almost immediate after you take it, within like 30 minutes, palpitations, high fever, confusion, and at high enough levels, it actually can kill you. So this is a very serious reaction because what SAMe is it's a serotonin precursor.
Okay.
So-
I've had that before and it sucks.
Yeah, so it definitely doesn't feel good. It's kind of like if you've ever known somebody to get a supplement of niacin. Niacin is another drug that some people are put on. It makes people feel feverish and hot because it is a precursor for serotonin. That can cause niacin can cause same problems.
I remember it felt like I could like take a marker and trace every nerve in my body.
Yeah, it's pretty severe. Have you heard of turmeric? Turmeric actually has been shown to help with some mood disorders, at least a little bit. It does have this bad effect on your liver if you have too much of it, but you really have to have a lot of it. Melatonin might be something if you're traveling. So if you're going out to the West Coast, you're going to Europe, melatonin about 2 hours before you're supposed to go to bed does help, especially if you're going out west where you have longer days. It can make you sleepier sooner. Then there's 5-HTP. This is a food supplement, which again is a serotonin precursor. It can cause the same problems where you can't have serotonin. I didn't list it here, but it can cause serotonin syndrome. But most of the time what it does is it causes pain in your abdomen. Green tea has been shown to be an anti-anxiety because it has theanine in it, which is a GABA precursor. Anything that increases GABA will tend to slow your system down. So there's a lot of things out there that herbs can be useful for some people. So there's a lot of neural systems that are involved in emotion that can get hyper-regulated during Thanksgiving, especially the Papay circuit. This is a circuit that involves hippocampus, which is memory, the hypothalamus, which is involved in the sympathetic nervous system, the thalamus, which is processing things you go through, and then the cingulate is responsible for controlling how you feel. So if you've ever had a bad experience with somebody, seeing them and interacting them, it can be difficult because interacting them makes you remember all the bad things that they may have done, or that, you know, they have a different political view or a different view on lifestyle choices that you don't agree with. You remember that stuff. That's going to make you not only anxious now, but it's also going to remember all those times where somebody said something mean to you, and that's going to also trigger this. So this Papay circuit is one that explains why chronic stress, you have things that are called rumination. So you kind of relive it in your mind. And every time you think of, oh God, I can't believe they said that to me, it brings up memories, which then re-stimulate your body responses. So this circuit is responsible for repeated stresses becoming to the point where you constantly think about them even when you don't want to.
Can you break that cycle?
How do I break it? You got to decrease it somehow. So what you have to do usually is try to find a way to modify this circuit. Now, it can be drugs, and we'll skip that part. It can be drugs, but I'll get into how we can do that at the end, because that's the end part. But we do know that emotions have rooted areas in the brain. So if you are scared, that's what the amygdala's job is. We think of the amygdala as this brain area that deals with all emotion. It doesn't really deal with all emotions. It mostly deals with fear, which is cool. Anger is the frontal cortex as well as the cingulate. And that is the part that's dealing with if you're upset at somebody for something they've said. You're stimulating that prefrontal, that orbitofrontal cortex. If you're sad, it's right temporal cortex as well as the amygdala. So some of the amygdala is sadness. And then the disgust is the anterior cingulate as well as something called the insular cortex. The insular cortex not only gets information from your memory, but it also gets information from your smell and taste centers. And so when you think of what something is disgusting, something can smell disgusting, taste disgusting, or act disgusting. All three areas go through this. So surprisingly enough, when you are disgusted by someone's behavior, you're actually using the same brain area that you smell and taste with. So it's kind of a cool dual use. And that's the reason why if you are really disgusted, it causes vomiting and nausea, because it's using this area is deciding whether or not to throw up. So if you're really, really disgusted with someone and really upset, it can actually trigger that. So there are actually brain areas that are responsible for different emotions. Now, let's get to the part where we say, all right, there's a lot of things here for Thanksgiving. How can we fix it? Here is the tips I can give you and anybody that's watching this video. The first one is moderation. Don't eat yourself silly. Don't do a lot of things. Do it in moderation. So food in moderation. I would encourage family in moderation. I would also say fun. So don't spend all of it partying. Don't spend all of it eating. Don't spend all the time standing next to family who you don't agree with about issues. Moderation is good. If you get caught in a stressful event, the idea is to not stimulate the Papay circuit or any of the sympathetic nervous system areas. And the best way to do it is to not respond to everything that you see or hear. If it needs to be, sure. But the first one is one that I've learned recently, this give and get grace. People are going to do things that you're not going to agree with. Understand that you're probably not going to change their mind on things. Just give them the respect to do what they say and believe what they say, accept them like they are, and hopefully they will do the same to you. So, second tip, listen more than talk. I have a problem with this myself, that I keep trying to convince people or talk to people to try to get them to see something when it's not going to work. My father-in-law watches Fox News a lot. And he's a Republican. I'm not. I'm not going to change his mind. But when he talks to me about things that he believes in or he thinks, I will listen. Because listening means I don't have to respond to everything. I can try to understand his perspective, and then maybe try to change his mind by trying to see the good in what they're saying. Now, if they're obviously way out in left field, it's one thing. But when you meet family, try to see the good in what they do. They may not have the opinions that you like, but they're family. And if you need them, they'll be there. So try to see the good in them and value the time together that you have. Good memories can be hard to come by. But if you try to stimulate the parasympathetic, enjoying the food, enjoying the company, and enjoying the experience, you're going to break that circuit. You're not going to form negative emotions that you'll drive. You'll get through it. But the best thing is try to do some of these and not try to force matters. Because you're going to, if something bad happens, you'll remember that and stimulate that negative circuit. Try to stimulate the positive as much as possible. And that's basically the best tip I can say, that aside from the pharmacological aspects, these are good tips that you can do that don't require drugs. So try to listen, try to give and get grace with people, try to see the good in what they're saying, and more than anything else, life is hard and people will go, and it's best to value them while they're here than regret what didn't happen when they're gone. That's it. So thank you, and I will answer any questions. Okay. So do you guys have any questions?
What effect does alcohol have on the circuit?
Alcohol will tend to reduce activation in the prefrontal cortex, which make people more impulsive.
Okay.
So alcohol, when combined with these other foods, can tend to stimulate the Papay circuit because you're no longer feeling as inhibited. Where before you might have said, that's an interesting perspective, I'll let it slide. But with alcohol, you might think, oh, let me get in on this. And it'd be more likely that you're going to say something you're going to regret if you're really, really drunk. Now, alcohol tends to also increase emotions. So if it's good emotions, that's one thing. If it's bad emotions, it makes it worse. So alcohol will also potentiate emotions as well.
What about THC?
Which one?
What about weed or THC? Weed or THC?
Weed. Well, weed will tend to.
Thanksgiving.
I think what it would do. My
The law.
prediction is I don't know exactly what the role is in Thanksgiving, but I do know that it increases GABA, which is the inhibitory neurotransmitter, and it also decreases pain. So that would also cover probably emotional pain. So you'd probably be less likely to see slights in behavior than you would normally if you had THC. You probably also would be more relaxed. So it would be less likely that these sorts of circuits would get stimulated and cause stress and panic. It's very hard to be on THC and be stressed. They're somewhat incompatible, but again, it's probably not the best solution is to get high during Thanksgiving. But yes, that's what normally it would do, is it would suppress the kind of the feedback circuits that would increase anxiety. It does have an anti-anxiety effect.
I mean, unless you're like family bonding time.
I mean,
Could be. There's probably another cartoon where people slip edibles in to try to calm down Thanksgiving dinner. I wouldn't put it past people that
would it act like, would weed act kind of like against, let's say, like anti-anxiety medicines or medications? Or sometimes? Or
sometimes they have weird, it depends upon the drug. It has very complex interactions.
Okay.
And the thing is that we don't know a lot about the interactions of that, because for most of the last 100 years, marijuana and THC have been basically a Schedule I drug, where the DEA and the FDA have assumed that there is zero benefit in marijuana. Now, in the last 15 years, we found that there's actually quite significant benefit in marijuana in a multitude of things, but it's not been studied rigorously because it was almost impossible to study. Now that we're relaxing the rules of marijuana in most states, as well as the federal level to some extent for research, there's been a lot more benefits that have been found for THC as well as CBD. And so while we don't know all the interactions, we haven't seen as significant reactions. Like one of the things that's interesting about marijuana is that it doesn't have withdrawal effect. like some drugs do. There doesn't seem to be a fatal dose. You can't. It will knock you out if you take too much THC, but it's not like some other drugs that when you take too much, it can kill you or stop your heart. It doesn't do that. So it seems to potentiate circuits more than actually stimulating them. So it's an interesting drug in that it's not really well studied. But there's some possibility it's got some anxiolytic effects. It stimulates the appetite, which I don't think is a problem for Thanksgiving, but it can, especially in people who are going through like chemo. Marijuana does help their diet. If they don't feel hungry, it can decrease the nausea that allows them to get through their cancer treatments better. Yeah. Any others? Before I wrap it up? Question?
I guess like when you're showing a circuit, like the circuit,
Yeah.
so like you're saying like people remember something and they have a feeling and it kind of repeats itself.
It can, yes.
It can. So like how does that exactly become of that, and what are like other ways to decrease?
So a lot of the therapies involving breaking this involve trying to remember the event, but try to take some of the emotional components out of it, try to take out some of the reactions. It basically, something that happened in your past that you're having a problem dealing with, trying to put it in perspective, like that was then, and what I did and how I reacted, and what was done to me happened in the past, and it's done. So it's kind of the acceptance theory. So what happens is you remember what was done, and you try to reduce this part as much as possible. So you don't have the physical reaction. You don't have I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it. Anything involving that, I don't want to think about it. Don't want to think about it. It's too traumatic. If you can break this part, then you can break the circuit. And so you still remember the event, but then you accept that the event happened. It was then, it's over. And you are not the same person, and you don't have to feel the same way forever. Doesn't make whatever happened to you right, but what happened, and it's over. So it's trying to break this so you don't, every time you think about it, create this. And this is the part that will do the most damage.
So like when people go through trauma, or like if they go somewhere, or like say like they had incident on like the plane and they're like afraid. I guess of planes because of like, I don't know, there was like almost a crash experience. Is that like, this is kind of like a part of it, like they take that experience and it just on repeat, like every time they think of.
Yeah, so what happens is our brain is very good at trying to avoid traumatic experiences. And so if we know that planes are scary and planes are dangerous, well, the easiest way to resolve that is avoid planes. But the problem is the avoidance is causing you not to deal with the problem. Like, obviously, flying is relatively safe, but everybody can have a traumatic event on a plane. It's pretty easy. And when that happens, all of a sudden, that's all you remember. Is you don't remember the 200 flights you took and everything was fine. You remember that one where there was a heck of a lot of turbulence and you thought bad things were going to happen. But you're here. So it wasn't that bad. And the problem is, it's like a phobia. It's being able to accept that what happened at that point was traumatic and it was bad or dangerous or could be dangerous, but to remove that as then so that it doesn't affect what you do now and for the future. And this is where it crosses over more into the psychological realm, which I'm not as well versed in, but it really is like we do in phobias. It's exposing yourself to the fearful thing, but preventing the panic and the response that was causing all the grief. So it's, yeah, maybe I had a bad experience with a turkey sandwich at one point, so I hate turkey. Well, maybe hold turkey in your hand. Okay, it's not hurting me. Okay, put it in my mouth and spit it out. Okay, it's not as bad as I thought, and then working your way up to eating it. So it's a way to try to slowly go through the memory, but take out the stress part so that it just becomes a memory that doesn't have that triggering feeling of panic, anxiety. And this is the one that gets us sick. If we take this out, then memories are just memories. They're just experiences, and they won't hurt us. Yeah. Others? Okay. Well, then I will end. I'm going to stop my slideshow and stop the recording. So I'm going to stop my share. And I will end the talk. Yay. All right. Thanks, me, for showing up at my talk.